So welcome, everybody.
What's up, guys?
Yeah, we came across a crazy stat the U.S. Small Business Administration put out. 4 out of 5 small construction businesses fail within the first 5 years.
Yeah, I think it's like an alarming rate
Yeah.
of businesses. It's a crazy number. I mean, quick math.
Yeah.
80%, 80% failure rate. I mean, that's significant and scary. You know, obviously the people listening to the podcast, they have much better odds of achieving
Yeah.
achieving
and we're so
success.
humble about it too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, we hope
Yeah.
that you have better odds.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's really it is alarming, like you said.
Yeah. I think though, like it is in all seriousness, it's the reason we have the podcast, right? Like we want to see that number decrease, right? We want more businesses to
Let's flip
succeed.
it. You know, where 20% fail instead of 80%.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That's our goal, and you know that's why we're doing the podcast.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and as a former contractor, I've felt that reality of being on the brink. You know, like how are we going to make it?
Sure.
And I know a lot of people, and you do too, Kinsey, that have just been either in business for a number of years and came against a wall and something started falling apart, and you know, it's scary.
Yeah.
I've also had a ton of fun running a construction business.
Yeah, end on a positive, right? We're not trying to scare everyone
right.
away.
I mean, failure shouldn't be inevitable.
Sure.
You can be one of the 5 that actually make it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think it's interesting, though. It takes us to, like, well, why do most people start the business in the first place, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think most of the people we talk to, it's a dream, it's a passion to start a business.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the goal is I want more time, I want more money. Most of the people we talk to contractors every day. And it's, you know, it really is kind of the same story of like, I want more financial freedom. I want more time. I want the ability to control my destiny and where the business grows. And also I don't want to work for somebody else. A lot of times it's, I don't want to work for somebody else.
Yes. Don't want to work for the man.
Yeah. Right. But I think, you know, in one word, like the dream of being a business owner is freedom, right?
Yes.
Like we're going to define that. And so like I said, I think it's just what we hear all the time from contractors just over and over again. It's the resounding, like, I want freedom. With my work, I don't want it to own me, you know, that kind of thing. And so maybe we can kind of dive into why 4 out of 5 construction businesses fail.
Well, I think when we talk about that stat, our minds all go towards the fly-by-night kind of operator that just really has no business being in business in the first place. I mean, that's really somebody that's unreliable, unskilled, untrustworthy. We've either had people working for us like that or have seen that play out. And when a business like that fails, you just assume, well, they had it coming, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's inevitable. It's a sad reality of you run a business that way. It's just, well, of course.
Yeah, that's writing on the wall.
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. Yeah. But there are a lot of talented, hardworking people that go out of business every day. And I think that's really... those are the people we're trying to help. Yeah. And really, and that's the category I would think we'd find ourselves in as well, of somebody who had something to give, something to offer, and still up against the wall and, you know, really on the rocks, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's this dream or goal of freedom and opportunity, like what I hear you saying. But then to your point, there's a lot of realities of and challenges that they're actually going to face, you know, in the process.
So I think if we rewind back to the beginning of like where it all started, and maybe somebody starting a business is in this position today where they're thinking about that dream you brought up earlier of the freedom that running your own business can have. Because when you break it down, it really, you know, you have more time, more money, more opportunity, and you control your own destiny. I think that's really, really exciting. Yeah. But it started for a lot of people, it really started for me as well, when you really had that kind of epiphany, that revelation one day, I'm really good at what I do. You know, and not in a braggadocious way. I'm sorry, that sounded really bad.
Like, okay, Ben.
But I'm more making this a general assumption to our audience that you just feel like, okay, I have more to give, and you reach your ceiling, your plateau, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think to that point of like, I have something to give. I have a value that I bring.
Yes.
Right. Like, hopefully, you're probably not starting a business if you don't have any sort of self-confidence, you know, in terms of what you...
Right, yeah. So, you're not just... So you have that level of belief in yourself. You realize you become good at your craft, and you have, you know, you really kind of graduate from that mindset of, I'm paying my bills, I don't have any aspirations. And this might be unique to kind of like a certain wiring for a person too, right? Not everybody comes to that conclusion, which is why everyone doesn't run their own business. Yeah. But, you know, you said, okay, I've got a lot more potential, and I want to achieve that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think speaking to that potential, it's like we think a lot about what winning at business looks like, right? And I think it's profitability It's having a reputable business. It's a balanced life,
Mm-hmm.
And so, we kind of spoke to this in the intro too, but being profitable means financial freedom.
Yes.
Like money gets to be a tool.
Yes.
It's not like the end all be all, to pay the bill. Like that's the goal, right? You have a reputable business. You're respected by your customers.
Yep.
In your community. You have a solid brand, under what you're doing.
Yep.
And then I think balanced, right? Like that's the life freedom that people in the space are seeking.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have time for the things that you want to do, right? You're not selling your soul. You're not working crazy business hours. I think a lot of times it's a starting point, like to get it up and running, right? That's the reality, really, with a lot of businesses. But you want to go to your kids' soccer games. You want to go to the lake. I don't know. We're in Springfield, Missouri, so I like going to the lake. That's why I said that. You might want to go to the beach. You might want to go to mountains, whatever.
Skiing, whatever it is.
I love
hunting.
all those things.
Yes.
So let's do all that. But no, like
sounds good.
Right?
When do we go?
Let's take a day. No. So balance, right? Like actually defining what that looks like and having the vision for the business up front, I think is, it's got to be profitable, it's got to be reputable, and it's got to be balanced to be a winning business.
Yep. I think you've really put success in a nutshell. That's the dream.
Yeah.
We know what success kind of looks like. We all, and really that's not some earth-shattering kind of revelation.
No.
It's, but nonetheless, we lose sight of it.
Yeah.
I think at all, sometimes we success kind of pivots, and then we become more okay with the long hours. We became more okay with, we don't have the balance or the profit. Like it's not as much as we wanted. And I think some of that kind of you're on the edge of failure all the time, and then it just takes one more thing to push it over the edge.
Yeah, no, that's good.
So when you're starting a business, obviously there's some level of planning involved. Some level of business plan. And maybe it's not formal. Like in my case, I didn't have a formal business plan when I started my construction business. It was more or less just saying, it kind of just sort of eased into it. It went from, I know a few people that need some work done, started doing those projects, and it just sort of happened.
Yeah, gradual. That's probably pretty common, I would say. Like most people aren't sitting down putting a document together, but some might.
Right.
But,
well, it kind of speaks to our kind of personality sometimes as contractors too.
Yeah.
That's not, why we run contracting businesses in the first place.
Sure.
Kind of how you usually start is, oh man, we're doing some great work.
Yeah.
And, it'd be nice to be able to, start doing that without having the middleman.
That's good.
So the business plan is the brand, and sometimes that's pretty whatever extent that however far we take that. Sometimes it's very modest of put together a business card or flyer or something along those lines. Get a name, maybe a website. You need some equipment, tools, trucks, trailers,
truck wrap.
whatever.
You got to have a truck wrap for branding.
Yeah, well, Kinsey, more contractors should do that.
I know. Yeah. I love it. It's great.
Yeah. Then you have obviously the source of customers. You have to have some sort of plan for that as well. A lot of times, like we talked about referrals, it starts off with a few people that we know would work for us, and so you have some plan of how you get customers. And then, sometimes we just don't really think much about scaling it. Mm-hmm. It's sort of this, we'll see what happens kind of a thing. Just ease into it, cross those bridges that we need to cross later, and, not get ahead of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I think it's this really focus on very simplified math. Man, we could make a killing if we did that. It's interesting. And we make a lot of assumptions along the way. When I say we, I can personally identify with
you're talking
making
about
assumptions.
You too.
Yeah, right, exactly. Those people out there. No, I'm like, I include myself in the category of, I assume we could do our projects and do them well. We complete work satisfactorily.
Sure.
And really, that's a whole process in of itself. It's one thing to be involved in a process, another thing to own a process.
Yeah.
So you work for somebody else, they have a process that you're a part of. Now you're assuming you can now do that, which might be a good assumption, but maybe not.
Right.
You'll find enough customers to be the other assumption. Like, those couple of referrals aren't going to last forever.
Right.
So we'll find customers. People are going to, back us and get excited about what we're doing, and then we'll be able to manage all the back office processes. Mm-hmm. I don't know if this even gets called out, Kinsey, when you're building a business, because there's invoicing and estimating and all of the things involved with actually running a business, and a lot of times you just don't really even think of that as a separate process. It's just like, well, it'll get done somehow.
Yeah. But will it?
Right. Yes.
The assumption is will.
Yes, right. There's this, I guess we're calling out assumptions.
Yeah.
And then we have this general sense of what overhead will cost us. Mm-hmm. Just being like, well, okay, we got my truck, tools, and you kind of have just a general idea of what it'll cost about this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, Anyway.
Which overhead's a big thing to unpack. Anyways,
that's a whole nother thing in itself.
Yeah, it is. But no, good assumptions to make of, assuming that it's all covered.
Mm-hmm.
I think too, just what you're saying, success, what I hear is success in business requires a lot of skills, a diverse set of skills that's hard to learn, right? Like that's a lot of skills that you're calling out that need to be a part of your business plan and part of the assumptions you're making, right? Or before you make assumptions, hopefully.
Yes.
And the reality of that is like you obviously have to have skill. We mentioned that to start a business. You have to believe in yourself and the skill that you bring to spin up a construction company, things like that. And if you're a business owner or a solo entrepreneur, you'll have to own and learn and hone in a large, vast skill set, you know? So,
and that's tough to master. Yeah. Well, I mean, what are the things that you need in business? I mean, we talked about some of the assumptions, but some of the just hard skills you have to have in order to sell something. You have to have a product, and in construction, you have to be a craftsman to some degree, or to be able to have somebody be a craftsman, you have to have something that you can deliver on.
Sure.
So craftsmanship, there's a back office process. So you have to have those skills of, and then there's the estimating, sales process, marketing side, and then the people skills.
Right.
And very few people possess all of those things and are excellent in all those categories.
Yeah.
And if you are great at that, a lot of times it came through hard, the learning process that was difficult.
Right.
Of getting to the point of, okay, I mean, we learn every day.
Yeah.
And some of those things can cost you along the way.
Yeah. Well, and even if you can do all those things, like bandwidth wise, right? Like there's not enough time in the day. I mean, I think that's kind of what we're saying is like, yes, maybe you can do all of those things, but like you're probably going to work your tail off. You're not going to have some of the vision type elements to like why you started the business in the first place, And
back to what we talked about in the beginning, where you just mentioned about what are the things of a successful business. Yeah. Well, balance.
Yeah, it's gone.
So it's gone as soon as you are the man and handling all of those things suddenly. So, I mean, there's the long career to get to the point of knowing all of those things well. There's also just talking more about these skills. Does one person need to possess all of those things? And should they be the person that manages all of that themselves?
Yeah.
And the temptation, because you can start off in that position where you feel like you have no other choice, is you recognize there might be a necessity. You talked earlier, Kinsey, about maybe that early stage of a business where you are working long hours, trying to work for something better and then pivot from there. You can get stuck in that rut and nothing ever changes from there. So on the craftsmanship side of it, I think this is the most common pathway we see into construction, right?
Like how you get into business.
Yes, right. Where somebody will be, okay, this person's a great glazer, it's a great plumber, a carpet installer, or just whatever it is, a great mason, and be like, okay, you're working for somebody else as a plumber, you're making $27 an hour. You see the invoices going to the customer, $90 an hour, and you realize, okay, there's $63 an hour that you are not a part of. And it goes to overhead and on profit and all the rest of it, but you assume you can do it better, and there's $63 an hour or part of that you could capture more than where you're at.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's the motivation.
Yes. Right. Key motivation is really saying you'll need tools and you'll need insurance and all the rest of it, but you realize, that doesn't cost $63 an hour.
Right. Yeah.
So somebody's making money off of your talent.
Sure.
And so you think, okay, and then, you started off with freedom. Then there's the part of it about somebody else telling you how to do it, when to do it, how long to do it for.
Right.
Where you're saying, I can work 4 hours a day, make half as much money, and have more freedom to do the things you want to do.
Yep.
So I think that's kind of the lead-in for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And then the other skill is the back office process side. And I think there are some people that have had that background where they had successfully managed a business.
Yeah.
And so that becomes more or less, okay, because they have a proven record, they feel like they're more confident doing that. But that person needs to be adept at finance, at contracts, and this is the area where construction, particularly small business, is very weak.
Yeah.
Back office. That's where we talk to people every day. They're a little bit almost embarrassed about their back office process.
Yeah, it's true.
You're just being like, well, here's how we do it. I know there's a better way. Don't judge us too harshly. But we have to do all these other things, so that's going to suffer a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the estimating, job costing side about how long is something going to take. Huge challenge in determining that. That's a skill in of itself.
Sure.
How long should something take? And when you're small, you think, okay, that should take me an hour, and you can afford to be wrong.
Yeah.
And then you pay somebody else, and it takes them 5 hours. You can be losing money fast.
Yeah, I think you even with that specific estimating and job costing, if you look at a large commercial construction context,
Yes.
right? You kind of mentioned this earlier today of like, there's probably multiple roles even in this one like call out alone, right? Like there's someone doing takeoffs and there's someone doing the estimating. Like it's not always the same person. So like, hence why business is hard, right? Because you're encapsulating 15 jobs probably if we're like at the end of the day, breaking it down and like defining roles and that kind of thing.
This big hat rack we joke around.
So estimating a job costing could be a full-time position, depending on how many jobs you're working and things like that, of course. But
if nothing else, it's a unique skill.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. Sales and marketing. Obviously, this is your forte,
yeah.
Kinsey.
Yeah. I think, and again, back to skill, right? Like anything that you want to be good at or you are good at has required time and investment and learning, which is why a lot of the people listening to this are excellent at their craft, right?
Yeah.
Or building. But then the skills that we're highlighting too, like sales and marketing, right? Like you might, if you're great at that, you love to sell. People like buying from you, right? Like the part that makes you come alive at work, I guess, is connecting with people, helping solve problems. How can what I provide bring value to my customer, those kinds of things. And why am I the one, like you don't have a problem. And I think we bundled sales and marketing together because it's like, if you can sell, you can also market yourself, and so the importance of that, you have to have, create vision and like a future that people want, and in construction, it's like, hey, we can turn this drab place into an awesome, or whatever that is.
Yeah.
We can make a broken thing better or, those kinds of things, fix things. And so you get to cast a vision and a dream for people. And I think if you're great at sales and marketing, you're really great at casting a vision and a future, that people can get behind.
Yeah.
And then why you're the one to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a skill that when people have it, you look at it and say, wow, that's amazing. Somebody's really great at, just like you said, casting a vision of what's not there today can be yours and getting you excited about it. And a great salesperson, that's a very unique skill. And some people have more of a kind of a tendency or want to be good at something, so they spend more time in that area. They see the impact of it. So somebody might see the impact of craftsmanship and said, okay, I want to be excellent. I want to be an excellent craftsman. And then the other person sees the impact of salesmanship and like, I want to be able to just sell people and have fun doing it.
Yeah.
And at the exclusion of other things.
Right. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because what you love to do will always rise to the top.
So true.
In terms of
And then there's the people skills about it too, because this is something that just, as we have conversations with contractors, and this is the area where a lot of times we just assume it will happen, where we're going to pay somebody good money to do a good job, and you say, what the heck? Why is that person not doing it?
Yeah.
But you have to be that kind of person where other people want to follow you. They want to work for you. They're excited to be a part of your team, and that is a unique skill.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So it's leadership. It's galvanizing that team where everyone's excited to come to work. I mean, and that's something that, why is it that when you go to certain, like we were talking about Chick-fil-A earlier in the day, you pull up and you're getting with a consistent experience. Yeah. Where it's, you're greeted professionally, somebody takes your order. It's you know what to expect from that experience, even though there's hundreds of or thousands of people involved in it. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's because of training, right? I mean, it's because of excellent training, which is hard to build. Yes. That's doesn't just happen. Yeah. You don't just become an excellent trainer. Yeah. To model what you want your business to be, like you have to be an excellent trainer. So people skills. It's great. Yeah, required. It really is good. Yeah. 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 And you can't have a winning business without these skills. I think that's what we're trying to say is like you have to work at developing all of these skills or compensate with other people, where you aren't strong in, so to have a profitable and reputable and balanced life, you have to be able to own these skills. Yes. Really. Yeah. I know a contractor who is a phenomenal salesperson. When you talked about vision casting, and part of this experience is also in being able to communicate very accurately of saying this is what you're looking for, and then outdo those expectations and say, actually we can take it one step further, and then people start getting excited about the idea, and the next thing you know, they're wanting to spend money that they didn't even know they had to have something, and you're selling really a reality that they want to be a part of. Yeah. And then there's also the side of craftsmanship, which kind of feeds together where he knows what they can do and it's going to be beautiful and he can sell it to a person. Right. But the problem is if he's weak in the business side of things, if he's not staying punctual in his invoicing and doesn't understand the job costing, that will impact his ability to deliver a quality product. Yeah. Because he's going to run out of money in the process. True. And so these things are tied together. If you don't have all four of these skills, they're going to impact each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
Where suddenly down the road, getting as another example where somebody's not keeping up with their invoicing. And the next thing you know, they're running out of money and they're taking shortcuts, or they can't be on jobs that they needed to, or the customers are mad at them. Like, these things really tie together in a big way.
Yeah, no, I think it's true. Like, if you can't market and sell, it impacts the ability to manage the business. You don't have any profit. You don't have any revenue coming in, to your point of the interchangeable nature, and then if you're not selling, if you're not growing, you don't have a sales pipeline, and there's going to be a lot of ebbs and flows, a lot of inconsistency in jobs that are coming in or jobs that you're working. You're going to be, I think, have a little bit of fear, maybe even of like, man, I don't know where the next job's coming from. Yeah. Right.
Feast or famine.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of a feast or famine mindset. I think that's a call out of like the importance of that one skill to that point, like to be consistent, to have steady revenue, those kinds of things you have to be able to sell.
Yeah. And the work quality is going to impact reputation down the road. Which, in order to be successful as a business, you need a reputation. Yep. So if you're not able to deliver on that, eventually people are going to start recognizing, oh, don't hire that guy because he's not going to be able to do a good job for you. And it sort of relegates the business to just sort of downgrades it to the status of just, okay, well, it's just sort of a snowball gets going out of control, and you end up just taking lower quality jobs, and it just and you're not able to meet that dream you start off with.
It's true. Yeah. I think some of these scenarios we're kind of playing out are like doom and gloom scenarios. It feels a little doom and gloom like.
Don't be down, guys. I mean, there's a positive in all this too.
Totally, and I think that that's just trying to call out the blind spots potentially that could be there.
If you're not invoicing on time accurately, you're losing money. You're not keeping up with the paperwork. I mean, you can run into tax trouble. I mean, how many guys have I know? I mean. Taxes snuck up on them. Next thing you know, they owe taxes and they don't have
taxes. Nobody likes
show of hands. Who likes taxes?
Nobody. Crickets.
Then there's all the insurance stuff and workman's comp, like all this business side of things just going to weigh you down. You feel like you can get nothing done.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. If you don't know what jobs cost, budgets, if you don't estimate accurately, the business side, it'll suffer. And so.
Yeah. And for most people, mastering these skills is going to be acquired over a long period of time. It's not something that you can really just say, okay, I'm going to jump into business and sort all that out in a few months. Right. And back to the assumptions we made earlier, like that would be a bad assumption to make. So, I mean, the reality is you can't be the craftsman, the business whiz, the estimator, the takeoff guru, the salesman, the charismatic leader of your company. And keep your sanity. I mean,
and actually live and fulfill the goals of getting into it in the first place.
Yeah, assuming you could do all that, do you want to? Do you want to juggle that many things?
Probably not.
Right. I mean, I think it's really just So I think understanding strengths and weaknesses and kind of really breaking it down to what are the things we even want to do is another big part of it. You brought up earlier the motivations, what excites us to come to work. Yep. That's a big part of it as well, because you get burnt out otherwise. You focus in a space where like the business side can just burn you out.
So true.
So craftsman, salesman, businessman, team builder, or some combination of those things, identifying where your strengths are at and all of that.
Yeah. And I think with that, like getting feedback from people who are close to you is a really great way to actually know what your strengths are. It's like it's an external factor, to think about. Like, I think they can call out your blind spots, like I mentioned a minute ago. Sometimes we as people think we're better or we're worse at something than we actually are,
so having really great point.
Having some perspective from somebody that's not, your own thoughts that are happening inside you all day
great call out.
Is a really, I think, key factor to actually determining what your strengths and weaknesses actually are. Maybe reflect on it on your own and then ask somebody else, what do they think your strengths and weaknesses are?
We just had that exercise ourselves. I mean, just being able to go through and be like, okay, what area do skills overlap each other? What are weaknesses that we compensate for as a team? And I mean, I think that's an essential part of this whole process. So it's a great call out.
Yeah. And I think too, if you're on your own, how do you supplement those weaknesses? But without knowing them, without actually reflecting on them, without spending any time there, you're not going to be able to know where to supplement, and if you're a team, can you rely on other people to support your weaknesses? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? So I know it's exercise like, but what are the gaps that need to be filled or haven't been filled or or there's overlap? I think all of those scenarios are things to reflect on, things to look at.
Yeah, I'm hearing you say you need the right people around you because it would be, I mean, maybe arrogance not quite the right word, but it's if nothing else unhealthy
Sure.
to just assume we can manage the entire business process on our own.
Yep.
And the other temptation in all of this is because we feel like, well, that's expensive, like hiring experts. I think we still need people with proven experience. I've hired so many people and thought, well, maybe they know enough.
Yeah.
And then later on you realize, oh, I hired a novice and maybe they were cheap or whatever. But you have to hire people that have proven experience, and just don't hire people that make assumptions and assume they can be good at it. I mean, and when you hear somebody say, yeah, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that, that should be a massive red flag.
That's a good call out.
You should be saying, I remember this one interview I had, and it was for a craftsman. It was a part of a remodeling crew, and he's like, well, what are and some of the interview questions are, what are your what are the things you're strongest in doing? And he'd be like, well, I can do anything. Plumbing, electrical, drywall, you name it, I can do it. And then you start realizing he's not good at any of that.
Actually, no.
Yeah.
Just trying to win the role or sell the
win
job.
the role, but he's also thinking he knows just enough about any of those things to be dangerous. And so you don't want to be learning with that person. You need the right people.
Well, and maybe even if somebody's saying that, they're probably not as coachable either.
Yes.
That's probably
everything's simple until you try it, right? We talked about this earlier, even in sports. We'll watch a great game on TV or something like that, and you're like, it looks easy.
Yeah.
And then you realize the level of skill required to be that good.
Yeah. If a normal person played against the legit person, the professional, you'd die. Maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I think in essence too, like just asking yourself as a reflection point, have you evaluated yourself? Have you evaluated your team? And the purpose of doing that is to maximize your team's talents, to maximize your team's skills. And also, there's sometimes things that you're doing now that are frustration points, and there might be somebody on your team who it's not a frustration for that. So it could improve morale for you and for, the team member. You never know. So
that's a great point. And I can identify that when I was running my business, there are people on the team where they had skills where they enjoyed doing things that I did not like doing.
Yeah.
And so giving them agency and ownership in that area, they're excited. And they're coming to work, working on something that they love doing. Yeah. And I'm thinking I could care less about that, but it has to be done.
Yeah. And I think it's because people want to have impact. They want to impact where they're at. And so if they know it's a weak spot and they're like, well, that's a strength of mine, they feel like they're actually like bringing value to the table. I guess
one thing in all of this is where you have somebody that doesn't have the bandwidth or doesn't feel like they have the bandwidth or doesn't have a team. Like say you're on your own and you feel like, oh man, and maybe this is really kind of depressing to you where you're thinking, okay, maybe I love being a craftsman or I love selling something, but I don't have these other skills. Yeah. This could be a little bit depressing, but I think there's also people that can supplement that either as a mentor or somebody you can hire part-time or people you can partner with. And we've seen a couple of guys go in business together with another person that has another complementary set of skills where two people are working together to kind of fill in the role. So I think that's something to identify very early on in the process of saying, okay, I'm not the businessman, so I need somebody that is.
Yeah, totally. And I think too, like for the people who are listening to this, like you're doing the right things, I'm not saying just in listening to this podcast. I'm just saying though, like
that too.
You're investing in yourself to be a better, businessman or woman or whatever, in the process. And so I think it's like you're on the trajectory for that, which is why earlier on we made the joke, of like, hey, the the people who are listening to this aren't going to fail. They have better odds.
It's not the podcast. It's somebody that wants to learn and improve. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway.
We're just two people trying to figure out what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. But maybe just to wrap up, like what final thoughts can you give to the listeners?
So having a business, coming back to why you started the business, you wanted the freedom. You wanted this opportunity. You didn't want to serve your business. And we lose track of that sometimes. And so the dream was opportunity.
Yeah.
And really we started off with this kind of scary business could fail, but the flip side of that is your business successful?
Yeah.
That's what you want.
That's the goal. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the dream. And so profitable, reputable, balanced. That's the dream for all of us. And I think what it requires is this understanding of what it takes to win. And it takes and making sure we have the right skills, that we're all really in the right seat on the bus, we're playing the right positions, and it's okay not to have these skills.
Yeah.
And it's actually the best leaders really are the ones that know their limitations. They rely on others, they're humble, they're always learning, and we're learning from our mistakes is really an essential part of growth as well, and not repeating them.
Yeah, that's really good. It's a really good wrap up. It's a good
So
episode.
yeah. Well, hopefully this is
Hopefully it's
helpful.
helpful.
Yeah, would love to get some feedback from
Yeah.
our audience on what are the things we're missing as a part of this as well.
Yeah.
And what hacks, what tips do people have involved in this as well?
Yeah, and what do you want us to try to take a crack at?
There we go. Yeah.
At talking about, like it, share it, subscribe it,
Love it.
comment. We'd love it all.
Thanks.
See ya.